Greetings, fellow Gothamites. Tiki here.
And BluedragonFive. Over 10 years ago, as the Dark Knight changed things forever, we lost the actor who made it happen. Heath Ledger delivered the ultimate performance that left us eternally wanting more. While we all thought we saw the last of his betrayal as the Clown Prince of Crime, two men unearthed, let's say, amazing footage of what he might have done next.
The job falls to us to comb over the files and documented exploits of Patient 4479 in this ultimate tribute to the role of the lifetime. Let's start today's session with He Can't because he's dead. All right, Dragon. So we're going from found footage to Nolan-style cinematics. And, I got to tell you, I'm intrigued to see where the story goes. But, Dragon, I'd be lying if I said, because you know me, I'm a found footage buff. It's one of my favorite subgenres of horror. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit disappointed. I kind of expected this stylistic change. Dragon, if I'm being completely upfront with you, I did see some of the thumbnails just on the sidebar of other episodes that we've watched. There wasn't really a lot I could do to avoid that. So I did kind of know that at some point there was at least going to be a jump to HD quality, if not breaking the barrier of it being found footage. So, Dragon, my initial response to this episode, I'm a little bit hung up on it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not beaming about it just yet. It's setting up some interesting things, but you know me, I'm still not entirely sold on the LexCorp of it all and setting up, in the Nolan universe. There's some fun Easter eggs. Obviously, the performance is still the highlight. The makeup job has never looked better. But yeah, I don't know, Dragon. I'm curious. Did you expect this sort of trepidatious reaction from me at all, given the change in format here?
Well, I expect you to be a little bit more, enthusiastic about it. Well, I mean, look, rest assured, we are going to, the found footage is not completely gone, but there's going to be there's definitely going to be more, non-found footage.
Mm-hmm.
More kind of the cinematic style, which again, that's what this episode was. A little context here. So, also, folks, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking down first we're going to break down the teaser for season 2, and then we're going to break down the episode. So, just as far as in general, so after the Joker blogs, series 1, season 1. Towards the tail end of it, after the wedding, they had their viral marketing, which really paid off, and that Warner Brothers took notice. Seemingly in a positive way, where they actually, what happened is they invited them down to the studio and gave them access to the copy of The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh wow!
Well, the script, more accurately, I think they gave them the script to The Dark Knight.
Okay,
Rises.
But that's still pretty big.
yeah, it is. Now again, it's unclear. This is a big speculatory thing. Now, what else happened during those meetings? Because think about it, the trailer that we're going to be talking about, uses a very interesting song. It uses, the whole I told a joke. I started a joke, sorry. The whole I started a joke song, which, if you recall, a few years later, Suicide Squad used for their teaser. With the big, the campaign there. So I don't know. I'm saying perhaps, I don't know. Anyway, so the point is to speculate how much the WB kept up with the Joker blogs while it was a thing, or at the very least they gave pointers about, okay, here's where things are heading. So maybe with your second season, perhaps you factor these in. But again, we'll see how that.
So in a way, it's kind of like that's really interesting. It's kind of like a point, but it's like halfway. It's like the toe is dipped in canon in a way. That's really interesting. That's a really. That correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a pretty unique circumstance with fandom.
It is,
right?
Most certainly. I mean, the closest thing we've had to this before was, remember that the greatest fan film ever made with the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Sure.
Well, remember they got kind of the Spielberg saw their tape and everything was bulletin forms. That's kind of the next example I can think of where something like that happened. Where you get the big wigs kind of taking notice like that. But yeah, so again, I'm not going to say everything's going to. Well, I don't want to give anything away, but let's just say, the Joker Blow has always had a 0.5 thing going on ever since. Okay, this is what would have happened after the Dark Knight between this and Rises, And then, of course, by the time season 2 is getting made, Rises is actually being made. So that's kind of the interesting kind of circumstance we find ourselves in at this stage of the game. So importantly, there's a thing to note at the beginning of the next phase of our journey here. So they crowdfunded the second season, which went over swimmingly. They surpassed their goal and everything. They offered rewards, one of which I acquired. I have the DVD movie of the first season, so I have it like edited like a movie, which only a handful of people have, autographed and everything, which is really cool. But yeah, so again, very first time we are not in found footage, and we make a big dramatic shift of it, like when we kind of transition there. We'll.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the transition is really cool. That's
Yeah.
it is pretty gracefully done.
Yeah, that's the main thing. That's the main thing I was hyping up of like, oh god, when it happens, it happens glorious.
No, it's cool. It's cool. It's just like I'm not. Like I said, I'd be dishonest if the big meat of the episode. I'm kind of like, yeah, it's like we'll see where it goes, and I'm still interested in it, and the performance is still good. But yeah, no found footage, no.
So let's start with the teaser. So, Tika, what did you think of the teaser?
Pretty interesting. Definitely cryptid or cryptic.
Yeah, so we just long
Cryptid
story
is
short.
totally a different thing than cryptid.
Yes, it is. So, long story short, Harley Quinn's Dr. Harleen Quinzel's mental state. We're getting kind of again. This is very much like a tone tease. Like none of this is particularly like about to be
right.
taken
And
literally.
you know what? I feel like that's appropriate given The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises both had very, very compelling tone teasers.
Yeah,
this kind of feels like it's in the same vein.
Yeah. This one's just maybe a little more. For example, if you notice all the Easter eggs and then the scene like Steve's dead body's there because that was the gift. Now, of course, obviously, I don't think she'd really be lugging that dead body back to her place at the ages, after all the time has passed. So again, it's kind of like a tonal sort of thing. So the idea is like at post wedding, just getting you ready for season 2. We're gonna be getting into Harleen's headspace, and it's gonna be a little trippy. We have the falling playing cards, which is a full-on nod to the Dark Knight trailer. We have like the falling playing cards when you hear like Joker's laugh, like as all the cards are falling after he blew up the judge. I got the Harvey Dent posters, all that sort of stuff. The joke, she's hugging the Jokerized Easter Bunny rabbit. I got dead Steve with the bow and everything on the ground, and just really awesome, like push in on her as she stares at the now framed Harley Quinn Jokerized portrait that he painted of her in the first season.
Yeah.
And then lastly, again, this is then mainly capitalizing on the Dark Knight Rises marketing, which at this point was in its infancy after the first, the Dishi, Basara, as you kind of push in on the Joker as he looks up, and it's like, oh god, then we're playing that Bane music. Yeah. All right, so so now we enter. I'm just going to tell you further evidence, just so I can say it once, so we're all on the same page here. So again, so now we're going to be talking about he can't because he's dead. So we're in the further evidence section of the Joker blogs now. Our phase 2, essentially, of our 3 phases here, Tegan. Phase 2, essentially, for us.
3 phases. Ooh.
Well, mind you, phase 2 is really short. But
yeah. Okay.
Phase 2 essentially is a prelude. So we're in the prelude phase to season 2. So basically, you have 6-ish episodes. Like there's supplemental stuff which we might just group together. So 6-ish episodes of further evidence that basically sets the stage. A little preamble, just kind of get some pieces on the board for season 2, which is rather exciting and basically getting you used to the whole, okay, we're not really in the found footage anymore. Or at least for the most part. Let's just say, if I recall, the found footage doesn't really. Well, that's not true. We do one found footage thing in further evidence, and then we kind of dip into it once we get into season 2. So
it kind of like wraps back around in season 3. It's like a nice little like cherry on top at the end, essentially, with the found footage.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Cool.
So, I mean, it gets weaved in appropriate ways in season 2 once we fully get there. So, again, right now, this is all prelude territory. It's kind of hence the further evidence, and this is why further evidence is in our tagline, in case the kids are wondering. Okay, so our opening here. So, we see the opening of episode 3 of the Joker Vlogs, Meet Steve. So, he's going through the office. I'm in your office. Oh, I got the wrong office. So, huge moment. We cut away from what we think is, oh, man, I put on the wrong episode. Someone's Andy Kaufman me. And oh boy, he closes the camera and we reveal the glorious HD cinema of.
Now, here's the thing, Dragon, is that it does look very good. Like for a fan film, it looks amazing. this is never going to be like, I mean, Nolan is a real, like, he is the
Well, it's not
masterclass
an
filmmaker
IMAX
of our
camera.
generation, so it's never going to quite live up to that standard.
Very few could. Let's be honest.
But you know what? That's like the only kind of disconnect I have with this. Like I said, like as far as the fan film goes, like fan films of the Joker and the Dark Knight, like they're a dime a dozen. It was like practically a whole genre on YouTube when that movie first came out, and I was right there in the thick of it. Honestly, I leaned more towards the parody side of things with the, there are a lot of Joker parodies, but I digress. But like, it's never looked better. But again, it's still like Nolan is a hard filmmaker to emulate, and they're getting it, they're getting it right. But it's still kind of like I said, I feel like the found footage, it's more its own thing, and that's why I love the genre so much, because you can do really creative stuff on it on a really shoestring budget. But anyways, it still does look fantastic. So
yeah. I mean, also the
and the makeup. Let's just highlight the makeup, because I'm sure there was an upgrade to the budget or something.
Well, the makeup always kind of subtly changed throughout the Joker vlogs. Like, they applied many processes to like in the early phase. If you really look, like, there's a scar thing, and then of course when they went back and reshot the pilot, it looked a lot more consistent and better. So this is maybe the makeup does get even better. Let me put it this way to you: there's something I'm going to just tease up for you. I know it's in the first episode. I think it's kind of at the end. I think it's in the last episode of Further Evidence. You really get to see it in full effect. They do something really memorable with the makeup that you're really going to get a kick out of.
Really,
yeah, you're really going to like it. Anyway, so
have you ever seen Pan's Labyrinth?
Unfortunately, I still haven't worked up the constitution for it, but no.
There is one moment in there that reminds me of like the Joker face cut thing, and it's I always get, when anyways.
Yeah. My point is, so just for a moment here, just with that camera shift, what's kind of really great about it too, in addition to just kind of already the quality shift, is that it's kind of meta, and that the whole reason the show's in found footage is, well, one of the reasons it's in found footage was that, again, to kind of measure up to that Nolan quality of like, well, we can't really measure up to that per se at this juncture. So we're going to have the ultimate excuse, and it's crappy, it's kind of a crappy beat up camera that they're using. So in this case, like, no, folks, season 2, we have the funding. We're all there. HD. Looks good. Yeah. All right. So, and of course, Joker with the perfect meta line to kick things off here. And it's just really perfect. So he says, "It's amazing what people believe just because it's on the internet." So this is fourth wall, and this is great. This is kind of a call out for the whole Lex Luthor thing of season 1, where basically it's so the whole reason the Joker blogs exist ultimately. Again, it was a dual purpose the whole time, as we learned by the end. So mainly, again, the whole Harley Quinn story happened on the way to his plan. He basically just wanted to stay in Arkham. That was his main objective, and then Harley Quinn just kind of took over things, and just kind of that became his main interest. So again, it's the fact that, again, it's kind of him making fun of the fact that, again, he did all those crazy things basically to prove that he was insane, that he would have to stay at Arkham. So that's kind of why it's amazing what people will believe.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's kind of a neat little call out. Now that we learn, okay, he was doing all that to basically be crazy, and also kind of get Lex's attention by all. Anyway, so all that being said, so anyway, so we have Joker in the doctor's coat like he was in that episode. So again, this is really cool. We're going back.
He likes his costumes, man, and this series definitely emphasizes that.
This is cool. We're kind of pulling an equivalent to Quite a Ride here. We're going back to the other, kind of a previous season or show that we know. We're kind of going back.
Sure,
but
sure.
With kind of the added tricks of the trade here, where he's in a lab coat, he's in Jeremiah Arkham's office. So again, the biggest highlight of this episode for me is that, again, this is kind of like the Batman Begins, but the equivalent to the Joker's. Like, okay, so Batman Begins, we saw how Batman did all his stuff. Like, how does he get to the whole because he's Batman thing? Well, this is how Joker does all his stuff in the Dark Knight, essentially. Getting a little peek behind the curtain. Like, this is how he does it. This is how he gets to be so scary.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Yeah.
So I always love that.
I mean, it's pretty simple, too. It's just like a guy who's really good with technology and hacking and stuff. And honestly, Dragon, I have always prescribed to the fan theory that the Joker is a very, very disgruntled and PTSD-ridden veteran, like maybe an Iraq veteran or something.
Right.
And so, yeah, this kind of leans into that. And I don't even want you to tell me if the series explores that side of it at all. I kind of doubt that it does, because I feel like it doesn't want to muddy the waters of the fan theories. But yeah, I don't know. I do like that it's just kind of like a really simple, like, in The Dark Knight, he's very much built up as this larger than life. Like, how the heck is this guy doing all this? And then it's like, oh, okay, he's just really good at this kind of like hacking and stuff, and getting through to people.
Well, he's not really hacking; he's just resourceful, because he's not really.
Well, I don't know. I'm sorry, hacking is just like a general term for like the computer stuff. But I'm sorry. Yeah.
So yes. Anyway, so again, point is Joker's intelligence. We just see Joker's intelligence at play here as he goes through all these documents. Like, he only has 10 minutes to do all this, which is really impressive. He's just, look at what he accomplishes in 10 minutes. He's gotten out of the cell. He's making he's making his video, and he's sifting through these documents, and basically getting. This is the really cool thing retroactively that we do here, is that you see him get the inspiration for a lot of the episodes of the Joker blogs, of kind of the stuff that happens in the beginning, before he leaves Arkham. A lot of stuff just kind of coming into play here, where he let's see. So he has Arkham's phone, which, by the way, has a picture of Mrs. Arkham. Tiki, remember that face? Anyway, so he's on Arkham's computer, which has list out the Arkham staff. Got some fun Easter eggs here. We're list out all the people that we have met.
Leslie Tompkins, I know her.
Yep. Now, impressively though, you had Rupert Thorne, who again, he's a main. Of course, you and I know him from the animated series, and a lot of people, the diehard fans know him. He kind of had political connections in the comics, which the idea here being, he's a probably either corrupt or not corrupt kind of financier on the Arkham board somehow with Leslie Tompkins. Who knows? Bump in Moneybags, Rupert Thorne, he's involved. And let's see, of course, Dr. Cavendish. We just name dropped a lot of Arkham doctors who were there, and importantly, Hugo Strange. So he's checking out GNN, and he's looking up some articles here, and he finds that Hugo Strange had kind of renowned Arkham doctor, had some domestic abuse troubles at home, which leads to the whole Hypnotized episode. This is how he knew where he lived, and that how sensitive the wife issue was for him. The whole, how do you know these things? We now know how he knows those things. We see, again, even little subtle things like Jim Corrigan and Harvey Bullock are mentioned. So this is probably how the Joker has figured out, okay, Jim Corrigan's a corrupt cop. I can make fun of him for that and get him to leak those videotapes, which is how we get all the GCPD video sessions leaked. Okay, and then importantly, this is how the Lex Luthor thing comes into play. We get to see the origin of the Lex Luthor thing in this episode here, where he finds that Arkham is in financial trouble, that Lex Luthor has been trying to buy it, and that gives him the idea. And by the way, let's just take a second to talk about the score here. We've incorporated the score rather well into our video here.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what else to say about that, but yeah, it's good.
I mean, it's been doing it. It's been going on like bits and pieces before. There's a full episode that really uses.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, it is. It is very cinematic. It kind of goes with the territory of jumping to the HD and everything. Along with the HD, we have a full blown orchestra.
Yeah, it's really.
So yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's really selling. Like the fact that you're in the movie now.
Uh-huh.
So let's see. Also, great kind of prop design, like the graphics of the newspapers and the articles and everything that are on the computer and everything, like LexCorp's expanding. Carl Beaumont, a little phantasm in there, Tiki. Little Carl Beaumont. He's testifying against the mob, which leads to his death. That we kind of set up in the news scroll last season. That Carl Beaumont was murdered. Andrea Beaumont ain't happy about it. I think we know where that's leading. Vernon Fields, he of course, Vernon Fields is the guy that the Joker skinned like a bear in episode 4. So we're setting up that meeting here. This is how Vernon Fields gets skinned alive in the same night. So he goes on the speed dial there. Anyway, so he texts Vernon Fields, tells him under the guise of Dr. Jeremiah Arkham, like, "Hey, I want to sell the asylum. Come meet with me." And he says, "Yeah, sure," which is not going to end well for him. So, anyway, so Joey Kramer shows up. Joey Kramer, the actor who, of course, played Steve from Meet Steve. So you get to see more of Steve here. And by the way, he was Lex Luthor's stand-in for Mr. Spacey last episode we talked about. Anyway, so we have this line always cracked me up. The whole hey, time's up. Who died and made you Clock King? So anyway, so the idea here again, so the fact is Joker was not lying in that Meet Steve episode where he said, "I took some convincing, but I convinced him to let me out of my cell." Where essentially, oh my God, no, he actually took the deal. He's that bent in Arkham. He took the deal to let him out and get the glory of catching him. which did not end well for him. So anyway, we have this bit here, which again, so we see the death of Steve, which is kind of interesting, where he gives him he's been going through these pills that Arkham has in his desk, and he basically he hits him on the back of the head with the flashlight with the great line, Steve, I think you'd make a great head of security, but you can't because you're dead. And he's bam, just hits him, and then
that's kind of like the less creative version of the pencil gag. It's kind of like him trying to come up with a pencil gag on the fly, and he's like, well, that wasn't as good, but it still got the job done.
Yeah, I like the head pun though. The fact that head of security hits him in the head, and because using a flashlight too, just very brutal. It's like how we're using lighting in this too. We use
but you do agree that it is kind of reminiscent of the pencil gag, right? It's kind of that same sort of humor.
Well, yeah, and it's also it's the charm of the Joker in general, Tiki, where it's charisma to chaos, which the Nolan films did so well. Where again, it's like, hey, I'm going to show you a little magic trick. Look how delightful I am, and bam, death. So it's essentially the same principle here. So so he's knocked out, and then he basically shoves all these pills down his neck. I love earlier he was like reading him like, do you suffer from drowsiness, seizures, lack of sex drive? He says no. Anyway, so he basically pours all those in while he's on the phone, by the way. I love the Joker multitask because, time is a factor. So he calls Lex Luthor, he calls LexCorp, and they have a fun little Superman reference here, which is, if you're calling about the damage from the Titano incident, call Cadmus. Which, basically there's like a King Kong Superman villain, like a giant monkey, giant ape that happened. So it's
kind of okay. Hold on, the phone. I'm sorry. Hold on, Dragon. You notice I'm a little bit unenthusiastic here, and this is part of the reason. It's that I just don't dig the whole thing with Lex. I don't dig the Lex Luthor and Superman stuff coming into this, and I'm trying to be polite about this. Okay, honestly, Dragon, we're having a therapy session right here, right now. I'm not trying to call you out, but I'm calling out just the nature of this more. You're noting all these Easter eggs, right? And they're cool. They're I'm not against Easter eggs, but to me, that's almost all that this episode had beyond just the setup of ooh, and he's going to work with Luthor and some vague allusions to stuff that I don't want in the Nolan verse. Dragon, I don't want to say that this episode is jumping the shark because it's not. It's still I don't know, man. I gotta tell you, I'm on a little bit of a burden. This is me having an existential crisis on air right now. I'm sorry, but I'm just.
Well, look, I was gonna say the Titano thing. I'm sure they're not saying they're. I think it's gonna be.
Dragon, there's only so many times I could be the bull bonds and oh yeah, it ties into. I mean, that stuff is all neat, but what does it mean in the greater scheme of things? I'm having an existential crisis about the nature of the comic book genre as a whole. Was Multiverse of Madness a good movie or a train wreck or both? I don't fucking know. Everything is Easter eggs and member berries now. Oh God, I'm sorry, Dragon. I'm sorry.
Well, what I was gonna say is, I'm sure Titano was just it was really Nolan-ized, whatever that kind of made it something.
How do you Nolanize a giant King Kong creature?
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure it was probably like a lab accident of some kind, or I don't know, maybe
okay,
I don't know.
The fact is, we're never going to see it. I'm saying this in good spirits. I'm going to go along with the series, but man, I'm sorry. I hope you don't feel like I'm jumping down your throat. I'm just honestly a little bit done with the superhero thing in general. With the whole oh look, I'm kind of getting the same vibe of at the end of Doctor Strange, where Charlize Theron shows up. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it yet. It had a 70% drop, so the people who have wanted to see that movie have already seen it. But I'm just oh great, it's another MCU, it's another Marvel character I don't know. Oh, Dragon, I think I'm falling out of love with comic book movies. Anyways, let's continue.
Yeah, so well, again, the important reference.
This is the discourse of Multiverse of Madness has gotten to my head a little bit. They called it Multiverse of Madness for a reason.
Yeah. My point is, look, leap or not with the Titanic thing, the fact is they're never going to address what the specifics were. It's just kind of fun, like, oh, they kind of left the wheels to spin, but apparently that's had an adverse effect on my associate here. But we're just gonna move past that. The fact is, the big takeaway, the kind of the cool takeaway is they mentioned they take it up with Cadmus, which is like the whole Batman Beyond Return of the Joker thing. So it's okay, a little cross pollination. That's kind of cute.
And again, I did like that. That's cool if you know what that is,
Yeah.
but it's been years and years since I have technically seen that movie, but I didn't get that
Well, it's the
reference.
fact that they're populating the universe, and you're not really going to see those things in the course of our story, but it's just kind of throwing it at you. Okay,
all right. I'm just
now the actual plot thing that we do need that is mentioned that does relate to everything this season, though. Lex
yes,
Luthor's presidential campaign. Now, this is big.
yeah.
So essentially, what we're laying out here, we're going to get into it when we kind of get into season 2 officially. Let's say. So Lex Luthor running for president is essentially what he did in the comics during No Man's Land. So we're kind of adapting that loosely here. We're okay. So perhaps that's why Lex Luthor wants to buy Arkham Asylum to kind of like fix the rat hole of the city to kind of up his numbers so he could become president, which is an interesting idea, I think. Which again, So that's kind of like it's so odd that whether they knew this or not at the time, but again, I assume they did. Like, Dark Knight Rises is going to do a lot of No Man's Land, so perhaps like kind of little Lex Luthor in there with, with kind of like a plot line similar to that. I don't know. Maybe some cross pollination in the thought processes there. I don't know. Anyway, so Joker leaves a message that essentially tees up like why he had that agreement with Lex Luthor at the end of last season. So he says, "Hi, I'm not a registered voter, so I can't help you there." Well, when he does the hi, he does like the hi you like, Tiki. He does the hi, like the nurse.
Hi.
Hi. Now, I'm not a registered voter, so I can't help you there. But I can help you acquire that property in Gotham you want. You want Arkham Asylum, I can get it for you. I'm about to meet with a mutual friend, Vernon Fields. And this is kind of funny to me. It's the idea that Joker's kind of like arms says, I know a guy who knows you, essentially. Hey, Vernon Fields, the guy who is who essentially is prosecuting my case, and who is also your lawyer, he's coming down. And my message I'm sending you is I'm going to skin him alive.
Mhm.
So anyway, he basically in return, I'd like a helping hand in the future. So my logic was always that Vernon Fields is the only guy who's like convincing Arkham to sell, and if Joker took out Vernon Fields, Luthor's only recourse would be I have to make a deal with this crazy guy. But he's the only in I have, and he's taken off. It's kind of like
I want to be clear. That in itself is a good setup, and if it was just Luthor, then I wouldn't mind. Dragon, it's honestly just that little throw-in Easter egg of like, remember the giant kaiju thing? I'm like, no, I don't want that in my Nolan. You could have easily done a Lex Luthor without mentioning any sort of like weird cosmic comic bullshit.
What's the thing, Tinky? You don't even before you knew that though. It was fine though.
But look, before I brought. No, it wasn't. I didn't even know what it was, but like I figured it was some sort of like cosmic bullshit. So,
really? You got cosmic from Titano?
Yes, I did, honestly.
Okay. All right.
Dragon, do you know how many comic book things have like the name Titan is part of like a planet or something? There's obviously the planet Titan.
Mm-hmm.
Metroid has Titania, or I think that's Star Fox. It's a pretty common sci-fi name, Dragon. I figured it was something sci-fi related.
Right.
Look, I know I'm getting hung up over the smallest detail here, but like that to me is just like a reference for the sake of a reference that doesn't need to be there.
All right.
I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry. I don't mean to like, I feel like this is literally like an existential crisis on my end, but
I know you've mentioned that once or twice. Yeah.
I know, right?
Anyway. All right. Okay. So anyways, the Joker leaves the message, basically saying like, hey, you help me, I help you in the future, hugs and kisses and click. By the way, I just want to say with the
XOXO.
With the staging, I love how he's using the flip phone kind of as like a button on the scene, like you clap, when he closes it. It's nice.
Yeah,
that's a little flourish. I dig it.
Okay, so do we have to do final thoughts at this point? I mean, like I said, it's a decent setup, but I just feel like I don't know. Like, look, Dragon. At the end of the day, the cinematography is wonderful, performance is great, makeup's great. I just don't want them to dab into the whole like, oh, remember all of these things. Like Dragon, it's like the Easter eggs are cool, but they don't make a show. And I feel like I don't know. Like I said, I feel like this is kind of like, it's weird that I'm kind of speaking to something that came out like over a decade ago, and it's reflecting on like kind of like the oversaturated state of the comic book genre right now. But here we are.
Well, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about it really. That like I don't recall there being like honestly, I'll admit I'm a little worried that further evidence might fry your brain a little. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh no.
Because that's the thing. I'm pretty from what I recall, season 2 does not really have like any real deep cut things. Further evidence, though, obviously tease some things up for that, so you might have references. At least one episode's going to be reference heavy, one, but we'll see how that goes for you. I think they're great references, but we'll see.
I mean, it's like I said, I don't mind.
They're not tight. They're not tight.
Built on references. That's where I get a little hazy.
Well, no, it's not. Well, we'll see how you. I don't think it is, but we'll see how it goes.
All right.
All right, but again, overall, I think it's setting the tone really nicely, again, stylistically in particular. But I just was fascinated by, again, this is like before we had gotten stuff like Quite a Ride and Better Call Saul. I thought this was kind of like a neat way of like going, like retroactively kind of adding some spokes to the wheel in a way that...
No, I mean, you're right. And you, like you said, you mentioned yourself that that's probably the coolest part of the episode. Yeah. And I agree with you there. Just kind of like it's kind of like the Joker's equivalent of like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yep.
Essentially.
Yep. Not behind the curtain. Don't want to spoil the surprise.
Oh God. All right.
And it's pretty much it. So I think we're again, further evidence is going to kind of transition us into kind of like a new era of the Joker blogs.
I'm curious to Dragon. I just want to make this clear. I'm not going to like freak out every time there's a comic reference or anything like that. I want them to tell a good story. That's what I'm in it for. So
well, again, I think I know one episode's going to impress you like no other. I know that much. There's going to be one episode of further evidence is going to completely knock your socks off, and you're just going to be like, oh my God, what?
And this is a transitional episode, so it's like this barely even feels like a proper narrative, and it doesn't necessarily have to be. So, I just want to end on a more positive note where it's like, I'm sure going into the season as things get set up and put into place, I'm sure I'll be more on board with it.
Yeah, because I mean, technically, we haven't pushed forward in our story yet.
Right, exactly.
So that's the thing. I mean, I know, actually, thinking about it now, I know the next episode's going to be giving you some really good story content.
Cool.
Anyway. That about does it, yeah.
Alrighty. Well, our time's up, and it's time to reseal the further evidence. Until our next session, when we attempt to answer the question, is there a method to the madness? With the Joker Blogs case study.
I think you'd make a great head of security, Steve, but you can't because you're dead.
Alama! He's supposed to be dead!
Yeah,